Intel's public sector vision really is to accelerate this movement that's happening to digital transformation. And again, it's really from emerging markets all the way through mature and established markets. We help governments deliver experience to their citizens by really engaging deeply with them to understand what problem they're trying to solve. And then we'll work with them and other partners to be able to come up with innovative solutions that really will impact citizens and have a positive influence on their lives overall. Los Angeles, for example, where they really have been working on a much more secure approach to managing their data. We've been working with the City of Boston overall on their Smart City initiative and the City of Denver. They realize that to launch a smart city, it starts with data. And it's not necessarily even new streams of data, it's how they can bring all of the existing streams together. I had a great experience partnering with AWS. Public sector is still an area that's evolving, so much happening right now. AWS has a global footprint, as does Intel, and together we can really provide a very powerful solution.
The world is a wild and unpredictable place. And isn't that absolutely amazing? Products can catch fire overnight. A back-of-the-napkin idea can change the world. An incurable disease can suddenly appear vulnerable. So many wonderfully improbable, never-before-possible breakthroughs are out there, waiting to be discovered. And with Amazon Web Services using custom Intel technology, you'll be ready for anything. Ready to unlock a human genome, to cure a debilitating disease, to go to another planet, to teach the world a new language. Because you'll have Amazon Web Services featuring custom Intel technology at your fingertips. Because AWS and Intel engineers have worked together for over a decade to make sure you'll be ready. And because you'll have AWS's most innovative and powerful cloud service platform to help you make the impossible possible. That is the power of AWS with Intel. So go ahead, chase the moonshots, double down on what's working, pivot from what isn't. With Amazon Web Services and Intel, you can charge toward the unknown, ready for anything, and ready to change everything.
Hello, good morning. There we go, that's great. My name is Max Peterson. I'm the Vice President for Amazon Web Services Public Sector for our Europe, Middle East, and Africa group. And I'm pleased to welcome such a big crowd here today. On behalf of everyone at Amazon and our partners, I'd like to welcome Your Highness, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for being here on this day. We're going to make history today. I would also like to recognize His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Mubarak Al Khalifa, Deputy Prime Minister, for being with us today. Thank you. And I would like to ask His Excellency Sheikh Salman, Director General of the First Deputy Prime Minister's Office, to join me on the stage here to make a few remarks this morning as we open the conference.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Highness, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince, First Deputy Prime Minister, and Chairman of the Economic Development Board, is delighted to act as patron for today's AWS Summit and has asked for the following message from him to be delivered to the attendees today. Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed, Your Excellencies, Teresa, distinguished guests, we welcome you in the Kingdom of Bahrain. The capacity attendance at this event, the first AWS Summit in the Middle East region, is a testament to how we view the role of cloud computing in transforming the way public and private sectors use technology. For Bahrain, the expansion of regional cloud capacity builds on our efforts over the past 15 years to transform the role of the public sector from the central driver of development to a regulator and active partner with the private sector in growing the economy. We are using technology to foster entrepreneurship, drive innovation, and accelerate economic diversification. By committing earlier this year to a national cloud-first policy, by continuing to invest in digital infrastructure, and by providing the educational, regulatory, and financial frameworks to utilize the potential of cloud computing, we can help drive forward the goals of sustainability, fairness, and competitiveness that underpin Bahrain's Vision 2030. For this is how we will build new industries, evolve established ones, create new jobs, and grow our economies. The ability of cloud computing to place immediate, cost-effective, and scalable computing power in the hands of every business and household will serve as a further catalyst for the growth of businesses in our economy. Thank you for joining us for what will be a tremendous opportunity to learn from AWS experts and partners on the potential of the cloud to support innovation and growth. I wish you a successful, productive day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now have the great honor to ask to come to the stage a person who has played a really significant role in the announcements that we have today. If I may now have His Excellency Khalid Omar come to the stage, please. We have been working tirelessly over the last 2.5 years, and I want to thank you for all of your support.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Your Highness, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we're delighted to be here today to host the first Amazon Web Services Summit to ever be held in the Middle East, right here in Bahrain. I think at last count, we estimated about 1,500 delegates that had signed up and registered for this event. even though we only opened registration about 2 weeks ago. And so we're delighted at the response that we've received, and it shows the enthusiasm for the digital economy and the interest in the region for an event of this nature. My name is Khalid Omar. I am the Chief Executive of the Bahrain Economic Development Board. And really, I've had the privilege of working with Amazon Web Services for the last 2.5 years. And as I look back on that period, I really want to share with you today a story that occurred about 1.5 years ago, and that still sticks in my mind. It was around March or April 2016, and a small delegation from the government of Bahrain traveled to Seattle, and it was really at the direction of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Mubarak, the Deputy Prime Minister, who told, I remember his words, who told us, go to Seattle, go to them, don't wait for them to come to you. And we did. Small delegation led by His Excellency, the Minister of Transport and Telecoms, traveled to Seattle to meet with Andy Jassy. And for those of you who don't know Andy Jassy, he's the CEO of AWS. He's done a phenomenal job building Amazon Web Services into a multi-billion-dollar business. He has done that in the last 11 years, only since 2006. Today, there are 44 availability zones that Amazon has around the world, covers 190 countries, serves hundreds of thousands of businesses. And so we were there to meet with Andy to tell him about the potential of the region. We told him that this is a region in the Middle East and the GCC that has a tech-savvy population. Internet penetration rates are amongst the highest in the world. Mobile penetration rates are over 120%, higher than that in the United States and in Europe. And so we see the region as ripe for digital transformation, and we know that AWS is expanding in Asia and Europe, but we wanted him to look at the Middle East now, not in 3 or 4 years' time. So we spent a couple of hours talking to Andy, and then I remember this, he stopped us. He said, you guys are scrappy. And we looked at each other, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What does that mean? And of course, Andy realizes we're confused and says, that's a good thing. Amazon is a scrappy company. That means that there's initiative, there's entrepreneurship. You make do with less resources, you challenge bigger competitors. And as I look back at that, that's true about Amazon because they've built a retailing business that challenged the likes of Walmart. They've built a cloud business that now is amongst the largest in the world. And it is true of this island of Bahrain that historically has developed leading thinking around regulation historically. And I only look at one example, that in 2005, based on the vision of His Majesty and His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, we opened up our telecom sector and opened it up to competition. We allowed competition to enter to compete with our domestic operator, our incumbent. We moved from 1 operator to 20 operators, and the results were astounding. We saw 70% growth in that sector. We saw broadband prices drop by about 70%. We saw mobile prices drop by 40%. The consumer benefited, the customer benefited, the industry benefited, and the country benefited. And we want to have that same forward-thinking regulatory approach today. Just in the financial sector alone, in the last few months, the Central Bank of Bahrain has introduced the first onshore regulatory sandbox in the entire region. It was followed just recently by crowdfunding, equity and debt crowdfunding regulation to allow businesses to have access to finance. And you'll hear later from my colleague, Mohammed Al-Qaid, who heads the eGovernment in the government of Bahrain, about what the government is doing as it leads to move to the cloud. Now, we are determined to establish a regulatory framework that will be amongst the leading regulatory frameworks in the region. In the next few months, we want to introduce data privacy laws, data sovereignty laws. We do this because we believe in the potential of the region. We believe that this digital economy will unleash innovation, and the move to the cloud will reduce costs and increase efficiency. And really, if I look back at my time in the EDB, I would struggle to find an individual who would believe as much as we do about the potential of the economy more than Teresa Carlson. She was as vocal as any of us a year and a half ago when we sat with Andy, preaching about the potential of the region. She's dedicated her time and her effort to come to the region, to meet with decision makers, to get to know the specific elements of the Middle East and the GCC, not just a day, but weeks and hours. And in her with her southern charm, with that Kentucky accent, with a steely determination that is really the prime reason why we are having this event here today, she has been a wonderful friend and partner to the Kingdom of Bahrain. Please join me in welcoming the Senior Vice President for Global Public Sector at Amazon Web Services, Ms. Teresa Coulson.
Morning, everyone. How are you? Wow, look at this room. And I think we have an overflow room. This is exciting. In fact, yeah, we have an overflow and we have everyone standing. I'm sorry that we don't have seats for you. But as Khalid said, we actually just opened up 2 weeks ago, and we decided to have the summit about a month ago. So this just shows you the interest here in the region for cloud computing and innovation. So it's very exciting to have you all here today. So again, our first ever summit in the Middle East, we chose here in Bahrain because you guys are so warm and wonderful, and we appreciate the hospitality to help us set this up. Did you all see the lights in the city last night? Was that not awesome? It was so beautiful. It was really great. But again, this wouldn't be possible of even doing this without help from lots of individuals, and really appreciate the Economic Development Board and the government here of Bahrain that's really supported our efforts. So I also want to thank our sponsors. So we were very fortunate to have our sponsors want to be part of this. And the reason these sponsors are so important to us, Intel Corporation, Batelco, C5, Esri Global Knowledge, Veritas, and more, the reason that they're very important is because this is what's going to happen within the region. More and more technology companies are going to come and be part of the community that we're going to be building around cloud computing. And this is what's happened around the world. Cloud is the new normal, and when we show up, so many of our amazing partners and customers actually show up where we show up. And I wanted to take you back just a little bit, because for many of you, you may say to yourself, why is Amazon in cloud computing? What actually happened that they got into cloud computing? Well, we had over 10 years of experience in managing what we call our retail side of the house, the book business. And I can tell you right now, if you were ever in one of our retail sites, they don't look like that anymore. There's lots of robotics going on, drones and robots. So even that's been truly automated. But from our 10 years of experience in helping manage the fulfillment of our Amazon.com, we learned from that on highly scalable, highly resilient data centers that we were working to manage. And we actually have a business on the retail side where we were taking partners and putting their consumer goods up on our site. So we learned from that. And as a result, we built Amazon Web Services. And we're 11 years old this year, in fact. And we are we're the fastest growing technology company ever to reach 10 billion in just under 10 years. So moving very, very fast. And what are the advantages of cloud computing? Why is cloud computing sort of catching on? Well, it's completely the new norm when it comes to development and how individuals are actually creating new companies, entrepreneurs, developers, engineers. And there's really some basic principles when we talk about true cloud computing that I want to share. And this is what we bring when we come along. And one is agility. And when I talk to my customers, they actually say agility is one of the primary reasons. So the ability to try things and fail fast, that experimentation that you need when you're utilizing technology. Because in the old world, you spent a lot of money actually trying things. You had to go buy it all. So you didn't have that agility. And what comes with that is the elasticity, the ability to scale your services or workloads up and scale them down when you don't need them. And you only pay for what you use. And that's cost savings. So you have agility, cost savings, elasticity, the ability to absorb innovation on demand. And then in addition to that, you have the ability to go global in minutes. So that's really what cloud computing offers you. And those are the basics. There's lots more to that, but those are the basic fundamentals that we always talk about. Again, lots of cost savings. And in fact, we have reduced our prices 62 times since we started the company 11 years ago. And that was under no pressure to reduce prices. We do that when we get economies of scale. So that's what we do for you, because we want you to be able to take advantage of more technologies and try new and innovative technologies. And you can't do that if your entire budget is going to sort of the same old technologies. Now let me talk to you just a second about Amazon's approach to innovation. We always begin with the customer and we work backwards. We call that our working backwards process. And we use lots of mechanisms in that working backwards process. And within that, we say to ourselves, when we're going to release a new service of any kind, we actually write a press release and we do FAQs and we say, is this what we want it to say? Is this what the customer's been asking of us? So we do that, and that's where we begin with our customer. And in fact, 90% plus of all the services that we launch are customer-led. The customer says, we need that, and we launch that on behalf of the customer. We also have a really strong culture here at Amazon. And when you heard Khalid say, Andy Jassy said that they were scrappy, I think that's very much part of our culture. We get things done. We move very fast. And our leadership principles drive what we're doing. And then how did we get to the Middle East? Sort of, what's our story here? How did it begin? Well, that journey began, believe it or not, close to 4 years ago for me. When I met, the first person I met was the CIO of Bahrain 4 years ago. But it wasn't really progressing like we wanted it. And I ended up getting an introduction to the Crown Prince, who was a visionary in terms of understanding what was going on with technology. He said, why wouldn't we be doing this cloud? Like, why aren't we driving this? So that led us to many meetings and coming here, and like Khalid said, really trying to understand what the Middle East needed. And I've traveled, and my team has traveled around the Middle East, the UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Jordan, to really understand what does this region need uniquely. Because no one place in the world is exactly the same, but at the same time, there's many of things common about technology and how technology really drives new businesses that we felt we could bring and share with the local economy and the larger region. And so then when we got to Bahrain, there was something really interesting about Bahrain, which was we saw that there was this energy in terms of wanting to work with startups, wanting to teach SMEs how to utilize cloud to really further and take their business from local to global to regional around the world. The first endeavor we did was something called the Cloud 10 Scalerator. And we did this with Tamkeen, which I really appreciate, a partner of ours, EDB, our partner C5, and AWS. And to date, I think we've had over 27 startups that have gone through the Scalerator. And the idea and vision is we're taking startups and moving them to the cloud, teaching them how they run a business. C5 works with them on raising capital, and EDB helps them work through the opportunities, and Tamkeen on how they educate and train and get more business. And then my team works with them technically to make sure that they have the very best design and architecture they can have. So we're really proud of this, but this is just the beginning, because more of these amazing kind of opportunities are going to be happening here. But I wanted to tell you this story because this was sort of, again, at the point of the beginning of one of our very first announcements that we made here in the Middle East. So it is just day one. It's absolutely day one. And the reason we say day one, at Amazon, we have a building called Day One, because Jeff Bezos always talks about it's always day one for us. And that means we're constantly on the move. We're constantly doing new things. So with that, I have a very exciting announcement here today. So drum roll. And that is we are adding a new region right here in Bahrain. Yay! So exciting. Oh, I did something to my slides, so sorry about that. See, I got so excited, I advanced my slides. Sorry. You can see, obviously, I'm happy. All right, let me get here. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this. So this is our first region, and here in the Middle East, but it's not our only region around the world. We have 16 regions around the world, and you're going to continue to see us announce and build more regions. We have everything from China to Canada to Singapore to Australia, Brazil, UK, Ireland, many in the US, France is coming online, Sweden is coming online. We've just announced Hong Kong, we just announced another AWS GovCloud region in the US on the East Coast. So many more coming online on 2017 and 2018. But if you really look at this map, you see that we had a big hole here. And so now we're going to fill that hole. And it's exciting for you here in the region and for our partners and our customers around the world who have told us they want to be in the Middle East. And in fact, let me tell you a little bit about why we are different. We are different because when we come in and build, we don't just build a data center. We make a significant investment in the region. We have what we call at least 3 availability zones. And in each availability zone, we have multiple data centers. And with that, that means you have resiliency, redundancy, reliability that you need for running your workloads. And that allows us to continue to build and build and build in that region. So this is an example of what you see and how it's sort of set up. Now, one of the reasons that I did want to tell you that we chose Bahrain was really the fantastic work that they were able to do with us. In our partnership with EDB and the government, they really had a vision, and they have gone through a major transformation, which you're going to hear about today. They are leaning in to actually making this country a digital economy. So it's a really important, and because to drive change when it comes to technology and make the right policy decisions can be hard, but it's also what shows and demonstrates progress in the right direction. And another reason I always love coming here is the amazing women that are in this region who are not just gorgeous, but smart. And I think they represent over 50, exactly. And they represent over 54% of the workforce here in government, I think is the number I heard. And they represent about 60% of the computer science students. So thank you, ladies, and continue to keep going, because now you're going to have a lot of new technology to work with. So now let me give you a little bit of background on the business. Am I supposed to pause, though, by the way? Oh my gosh, thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. I almost forgot. I was so excited. I just almost kept going. So let me tell you a little bit of an update on the AWS business. So literally barely a year ago, we announced that we were about a $10 billion business. So now already our revenues are $16 billion, not even a year later. So that shows you we're on a 42% year-over-year growth rate. So this is an example. The reason we show you this is because it's just the trajectory of the business and how quickly cloud computing with AWS is growing, because you, the customer, and you, the partner, are making choices on cloud computing with AWS. So thank you for that. And it's not only us saying that, telling you about our innovation. For 6 consecutive years in a row, we've been the highest on the top right of the Magic Quadrant for the completeness of vision and the ability to execute. So we're very proud of that, and we continue to sort of overachieve there, and that's what we want to do on behalf of our customers in terms of the innovation curve and the vision curve. We have million active customers, and I remember just a couple of years ago, it feels like that we were saying hundreds of thousands of customers. Now we have millions of customers active every day. And let me tell you about some of these companies. So when we first launched, again, in 2006, people said only developers are going to use this. No one's going to use this, just developers. And then we started getting startups. And then people said, only startups are going to use this service. Then SMEs started using it. People said, well, enterprises, they're not going to use this. Government will never use cloud. And now, fast forward today, we have millions and millions of customers, including the largest of enterprises, the largest of governments, and they're making bets on utilizing the cloud because of the security, the resiliency, the cost savings, and the agility of it. But again, you can see Capital One is a great example. Just last year at reInvent, who's a major financial services bank, everything from NASDAQ, Suncor, JP Morgan, Dow Jones. So financial industries to regulators, to the Financial Conduct Authority, to FINRA in the US, have chosen to utilize AWS. And then you also have some great local enterprises. Fly Dubai is one of our customers, and they turned to AWS when they wanted to launch a new online service for their check-in platform because they needed to move fast. And they needed to scale it, and with airlines, they want to be customer friendly and never have their services go down. So tons. We have, of course, Souq.com, which we're very proud of. They're now an Amazon company, but they're a retail site here in the Middle East. And then, of course, I'm very proud of the public sector customers because I run our public sector business. And just 7 years ago, we started our public sector business. And we have customers from around the world, from defense to intelligence to NASA to, again, regulators, to interior, to finance groups, to education institutions around the globe. So I'm really excited about the number of public sector customers now, thousands and thousands that have chosen to utilize AWS. And again, you have some here, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Ministry of Justice, the eGovernment Authority, the Ministry of Education, Bahrain Polytechnic, which, by the way, has the highest number of students in a program we have called AWS Educate, which I'll tell you about here shortly. And then startups. So startups were really sort of the cornerstone of our business. Think about any startup that you've ever heard of them, and most ran on AWS or started their business on AWS. In fact, if you ever go out to Silicon Valley or talk to any, they say, I don't know any different to be born in the cloud. I had the opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia and meet with Fetchr and all their startups, and I was so excited. I hope some of them are here today. They all came up to me and were like, Teresa, we need you to help us with the AWS Activate program. And we said, let's do it. So now we're working with Fetchr in their Activate program. So it's pretty exciting. And then I know you all have heard about Kareem, which it's grown 10x the size every year. They run on AWS, and it helps them scale. And now they serve over, I think, 12 million customers. So that's just a great example of another startup here in the local region. And here's a few for you today, which is amazing. I love this, and this slide is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. 1GCC is one that came out of the C5 accelerator, Cloud 10, that does, it's like the LinkedIn for the Middle East, which I love. So there's things that really you all are creating here locally that meet the needs of your region. And I think that's what's really important, to have a platform to try, be entrepreneurs. Really, that was our vision, to have something that you all could really try in a very inexpensive way. And in most of our services, we have free tiers, and I have so many startups say, I'm still using a free tier. So now let's talk about one startup. I'd like for you to meet Idris Al-Rafi, who's the CEO and founder of Fetchr. And he's going to tell you, this is a startup that was born in Dubai, and he's going to tell you a little bit about their journey. So Idris, if you can come on up. Where's Idris? There you are. Come on up. Come on down or come on up. Welcome. There you go.
Good morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. So it's an honor to be here on day one of AWS Middle East. I just wanted to share a little bit about our story of Fetchr. So this way. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Here we go. So this is a little bit about me. So I come from e-commerce. A couple of years ago, I was CEO of one of the largest e-commerce company here in the region. This is where I started babbling with logistics and how it was working. Right. So this was a little bit like the epiphany moment where I realized that it was actually not working. Okay. There was a lot of problems, customer dissatisfaction, a lot of hurdles for e-commerce to actually grow because of logistics. I believe that as an industry, right, you cannot survive as e-commerce. You cannot survive if you got between 30 to 40% undelivery rate. And I think as a whole industry, it cannot work. And this is one of the things we're trying to work. So I started Fetchr about 2012, and now flashback to today, we're about 2,500 employees. We raised $41 million from both local investors and Silicon Valley investors. I'm really proud to be part of this. This is my Twitter. So this is the problem, right? If you look at if you look at the Middle East, but also like all emerging markets, there is no addresses, right? Whether you're talking about Abuja, right, Nigeria, or you're talking about Dubai, right, for example, there is no addresses, right? And the problem, so the whole logistics industry has been built on addresses, right? If you look at the West, if you look at France, UK, US, everything has been built on an address system. That's why the delivery is working. So most of the countries, there is about 3 billion people now that live without an address. And this is where e-commerce is growing, right? Whether, again, you're talking about Pakistan, the Middle East, Nigeria, India. And then two, people are on their phone, right? If you look at the trends on m-commerce versus the desktop, you can see that now 85%, 86% happen on mobile, which means people are already on mobile. And basically the whole idea of Fetchr is that since people are already buying on mobile, let's make their phone their home. Okay, go completely around the address system and make their phone, their GPS location, as a delivery system. And that's the key, right? And so we started the company about 4 years ago. This is the trends, right? So talking about now largely about e-commerce. E-commerce has grown quite a lot, right? E-commerce is about 2% of retail. Retail is about $460 billion market. And if you look at e-commerce as a trend, it's been growing. We're talking about 40% CAGR in the next 10 years. And there has been quite some activity, right? So we just talked about the acquisition, obviously from Souk with Amazon, our first unicorn here in the Middle East, first billion-dollar company. And now the Noon.com, which is about to go online before the end of the year. Again, one of the key things that is driving e-commerce is obviously the growth of millennials, right? We're talking about a lot of the newcomers that are actually using their smartphone and buying online more and more. That's why e-commerce is supposed to grow, where we're talking about $5 billion market going to about 10 billion. And this is not the main trend, right? So this is just for you to have an idea, right? We're talking about 76% of millennials now that are more that are willing to buy online, okay? And this is the key change, right? And whether we're talking about a market that is saturated like Dubai or Bahrain, or whether markets that are lack of offering like tier 2, tier 3 cities in Saudi Arabia, this is what's driving e-commerce all across the region. Again, one or two key metrics that is important, right? So one is the fact that the average basket size is much higher, right? So the opportunity is here, right? We're talking about, and these are net-a-porter type of numbers, right? So major e-commerce players. In the Middle East, you have one of the largest basket size that you have all across the world, which is very interesting from e-commerce companies. And again, you can see that the smartphone and the smartphone penetration and the app usage is one of the highest in the world. But again, the major issues, right? No addresses, 90%, between 80 and 90% of transactions are still cash on delivery, which is one of the biggest constraints for e-commerce, and systems that are based for the West and not the Middle East, not emerging markets, which means unhappy customers. We did a study back in the days on all the people that only bought one on e-commerce, once, okay? 70% of the reason why was because of logistics. You cannot have e-commerce thriving in these markets if logistics is not solved. We did a study just about 1,000, 1,500 companies, whether local but shipping internationally or international shipping into the region, to see, okay, what are the main problems with regards to logistics in e-commerce? And these are just a little bit, just to give you an idea, right? So we're talking about items arrive late, they arrive damaged, lack of COD payment option in a market where 80 to 90% are cash on delivery, right? So obviously, like, this is just a little bit of the metrics. One of the key things that we're really working on is the return rate. Again, the return rate is the undelivery rate, the ability to find the customers. Because we circumvent completely the address system and go straight to the phone, we have a much better return rate, which means our delivery success rate is much, much better. And I think that's one of the key. And we put the customer at the core of the delivery proposition, right? So just through the app, you don't have to talk to anybody, which is one of the big changes in this region. You choose your time slot, you share your location, this is done. One of the key things is not at home. I'm sure in your personal life, you have all received like type of packages and you're in the meeting, you cannot pick up the phone, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of frustrations that happens here. Or not at home, literally like a Tuesday morning and you're at the office and you cannot get anything delivered. See the video. Okay, no sound. But anyway, so this is just to give you an idea of how simple it is, right? You got the interface, you share your location, you choose your time slots, 2 hours, and then you have like the same type of choose your amount, cash on delivery, done, okay? And again, one of the key things is the traceability. I think that customers now, especially today, are more and more used to having traceability, being able to know at the minute level when the packages is coming. In the age of Uber and Karim, I think that as a logistics industry, we need to be there at the same level. Bad experience with the driver, multiple delivery instructions. I'm sure you all face this in your personal life. For us, it's that simple. Again, you can see the driver coming, everything happened. One of the key things that make customer happy is that when you're, like the 2 minutes before the delivery, we ask you what you want, right? Call me 5 minutes before. Don't call me, leave it at reception, leave it to that phone number. All the stuff that can really improve your customer experience and make sure that you're gonna buy online because the delivery is working. It's all the things we're working on. And then obviously, return. One of the key things that e-commerce are working on, and we've seen in the US like business stories like Zappos and so on, that have been built on how, which is actually acquired by Amazon, but one of the key stories of their success story is how easy is it to return. In a market that is very fragmented, we're talking about 6 markets in the GCC, in a market that is very fragmented, it's critical to have a return system that is working, a cross-border delivery system that is working. So this is what we do. It doesn't matter where the client is coming from, UK or regionally. We gather the packages and then we bring it back consolidated back to this. One very last thing is that we've been growing quite a lot, and just to give you an idea, we recruited about 250 people in the past 6 weeks. But I believe that there is quite a lot that needs to be done. And for us, Amazon is a no-brainer. AWS is a no-brainer because we need to scale, and we're thinking about 30% monthly growth. There is no way we could have gone with our own infrastructure. So we chose AWS quite early on. So that's it. I believe the still is best to come. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Very interesting. Thank you. So what I'll tell you while they're getting my slides back up is after I'm done with my keynote, we have a great panel for you. And then after that, we have amazing breakouts, technical and business breakouts. So do not miss those because when we have these conferences, they're learning conferences. And it's important that you spend the time and really get to know those, and then we need your feedback. So when we have another summit, within the next summit, you can tell us what we were missing, like what, from that perspective, what you need more of. Because we love getting feedback from you, so you can tell us more of this, less of that. Okay, so that was a great example of a startup, and you have many here across the Middle East. But as you heard from Fetchr, AWS can really help you accomplish what the goals that you need to do for your business in terms of moving faster. And can I for a minute, how many of you raise your hand if you're part of a startup? Can I sort of get a sense? Okay, that's good. That's great. Wow, okay. So in really taking advantage, I think the other thing is really getting to know each other and getting those lessons learned from each other. And that's really going to help you when in terms of moving faster in the cloud. Because what we've actually seen with a lot of venture capitalists and private equity groups, they tell me they won't even invest in companies if they're not utilizing the cloud, because they don't think that they can be as efficient as they should be. And again, so we talked about moving faster, but why are customers actually going through the transformation? Well, when you think about cloud computing, the first thing that really comes to mind for me with AWS is security. Security and compliance. And I know for many people in the early years of starting this business, we couldn't even get into a room because people would say, you're not secure. But let me tell you why all that has changed. Now we have many customers actually moving to the cloud because of security. Many of their data centers aren't patched properly. They don't do updates. They can't really determine actually what they're running. And with cloud, you can do a network call and determine what applications you're running. So you have everything from the security, compliance, and privacy to data center consolidation. Many people don't want to run these big data centers at the low efficiency that they're in. Many of them only run at like 15% capacity. So many countries, many large enterprises are doing massive data center consolidation. And if you see most governments around the world, they actually have a strategy for data center consolidation. And then workforce productivity. Just a few months ago in Forbes magazine, AWS came out as the #1 certification for tech. So the solution architect was the #1. It moved up above Microsoft, Cisco, SAP, all of them as the #1. And they said the average salary in that starting was $125,000. So workforce, and that's the reason you have to update and modernize your workforce for the new technology age and the new digital age. And then, of course, operational excellence. To be able to track and understand what you're doing operationally is very, very important. And then, of course, last but not least, but cost savings. And we talked about that already. How does AWS support your transformation? Well, through our pace of innovation. I love this slide because I started in 2010. And in 2010, we launched 61 new services, and we were so excited about that. Well, now we have launched, just last year, we launched over 1,000 new services in 2016. And you're going to see that number go up. We always make, at our reInvent conference in Las Vegas in November, we always announce the number of new services and features that we actually launched. And this pace of innovation is based on your all's feedback to us. And it's also, when we release this pace of innovation, we put this in the regions that we launched. So you all get the pace of innovation ahead of your demand. And I think that is critical. Who gets to try technology in a big way before they actually buy it at scale? And that's what cloud allows you to do. Try things, create architectures and design, and then roll those out as you have them properly set up for the workload. And with that, now this is an eye chart, so don't try to read this. But basically, the reason I'm showing you this, it's really the vast family of services, everything from our base infrastructure tools all the way up through what we offer in terms of technology and business support. And the reason I show this for you, it's not one size fits all. So every workload has a unique need in terms of a type of compute, a database, the storage that you're going to utilize. And what we offer is a wide portfolio of services for whatever the workload you have. And that's really important because a lot of people want to say, well, cloud's a commodity. We actually don't look at it like that at all. We look at it as really meeting the needs of the kind of workload that you have to make it actually be faster, higher levels of productivity, and really get it to market or to the citizen as fast as possible. And I show you this just as an example of pulling out of the earlier slide, which today we have over 60 families, 70 families of our services. But in our compute instances, you see the different types of compute, everything from graphics intensive to high availability to memory intensive. So you get to select the compute type that you need for the workload. So if you think about local things like analytics, machine learning, video production, gaming, and more, you're going to go up and pick the type of compute that you need to run that exact workload. And just very quickly, 2 great examples. The American Heart Association is one of our best partners. Nancy Brown is the CEO. And Nancy, while she is not a technologist, she has learned technology that she needs the right tech to drive the mission of the American Heart Association. And just this last year, we launched a precision medicine platform with the American Heart Association. And she is using, she and her team of the best heart doctors in the world and cardiologists, we are crowdsourcing content, both genomics and phenotype data sets, to really look at new cures and ways that we can speed up things for diabetes, stroke, heart disease. But not only is Nancy utilizing our latest and greatest tools, she's utilizing some of our artificial intelligence tools like Lex and Polly to actually do fundraising. So she's using Alexa, our Echo, for voice recognition and AI to have it, you can ask it questions about heart disease, even doing CPR. So she's utilizing these tools across the American Heart Association. Then we have Thor, which is a digital defenders of children dedicated to driving technology innovation to find sexual abusers and offenders of children. And we're doing this through artificial intelligence, through recognition of patterns of handwriting and facial to try to catch these perpetrators and identify where these children are located and get them back to their parents. And now, I'd like to have you hear from another one of our customers, NBC, Adrian Bloom, who's the senior manager of the online platform. And he's going to tell you about what they're doing. And they're the largest media and broadcasting group in the Middle East and North America. So Adrian, if I could have you come to the stage. Come on up or come on down. Welcome, Adrian. Good to see you today. There you go. We'll get you set up on that.
In the meantime, I'll just start off with what was going to be a nice logo of NBC and my name underneath of it. When Amazon asked me to come speak at this event, they told me we're going to do an entire day focused on cloud services and Amazon Web Services. So would you like to come and speak? And I said, well, sure. I could easily fill a day talking about Amazon Web Services. And they said, no, actually, you're going to get about 10 minutes to talk about all of it. So I took 200 slides and narrowed this down to about 10. Hopefully we'll get them in a minute or so. I work at NBC. I think nobody here really needs an introduction on what NBC is. We're the largest broadcaster in the Middle East, about 18 channels right now, I think, 2 radio stations, approximately 160 million viewers a week. And some of our shows, like Arab Idol, are actually more popular than the Super Bowl is in the US. In digital as well, we have a huge presence. And to show you a map of that, I really do need to see some of my slides.
So tell me about NBC.
Well, first thing I want to say is you've actually got a cloud machine here, which I found very appropriate. I think this is actually...
You got them? Do we have them? All right, let's give him a big hand. All right.
Yes.
High five, we got it.
tell you, in live television, nothing like this ever happens. I only wish that was true. Things go wrong all the time, and in digital, of course, as well. My main mantra is, it's not avoiding failure, it's how you recover from it. So let me give that a go. This is actually a map of our digital audience, and I took this straight from Google Analytics. I can't give you actual numbers in any of these slides because it's too commercially sensitive. But as you can see, Google Analytics colors every country where you have an audience. All of the countries in this map are actually colored. We are a truly global company in digital and reach every country on Earth. Of course, and this is slightly faded out in the shades of blue, but the darker is the larger audience. And obviously, we're very focused on, say, GCC in general, Egypt, Maghreb, Levant, but really the Arab diaspora around the world is a huge audience globally. Some countries we can still improve a little. I noticed that Greenland is really large, but we only have 2,900 users there. So we need to work on that. Although, to be fair, I was actually impressed that in a tiny population like that, it's still 2,900. But just to give you an idea of the scale, the rest is much, much larger. Our main offices for technology, and I'm really talking about digital technology, of course, our headquarters is in Dubai, but most of our development and technical staff, tech leads, developers, sysadmins are in our office in Amman, Jordan. And if there's anybody technical here who's looking for a job in Jordan, we are trying to really increase our team there. So get in touch if you would like to work in that kind of environment. Obviously, putting together digital services mean you work with a lot of different companies around the globe. I actually put these dots on a map of the companies that we're currently engaged with, that I work with. I'm responsible for the coherence and innovation of our platforms and infrastructures. So these are actual companies that on any given day I would be on the phone with. So this reaches from the US to the UK to Norway, Finland, Vietnam. It really is bringing together talent from all over the world in order to create these services. Of course, our main digital property is Shahed.net. The first streaming catch-up VOD service in the Middle East. It's about 10 years old now. It's probably also the largest in the Middle East. By some calculations, we are responsible for about 15% of all internet traffic in the region. So if I look at this actual traffic, then again, not the real numbers, this is many, many millions, let me stick to that. There's this huge peak in the middle of this graph, and I think nobody here will be surprised to see what causes that, which is the month of Ramadan, where we see a massive increase in the amount of video that people are watching online on Shahed. Depending on what kind of graph and what kind of metric you use, it's 5 to 10 times as much as normal. Now, back when we still used dedicated hosted servers for this, we would actually have to scope our infrastructure based on that top dot. So the entire year you would be running many, many servers just to cope with this 1 month of super high traffic. And super high traffic, as in some of our CDN partners tell us that this to them right now is more like the Olympics or the World Cup. It is that kind of huge audience. Of course, we're no longer using dedicated servers for this, and we've for some time now been using Amazon. So if I look at our spend with Amazon, you actually see that this very closely aligns with our traffic across the year. What we do in the month before Ramadan is ramp up all of our servers, scale the entire infrastructure, add servers everywhere to deal with this increase in traffic. Of course, crucially, after Ramadan, we also scale it back down because we don't need that many resources anymore. And increasingly, we're changing this to auto-scaling, which means that there's no actual manual involvement in adding these services, and it will go with the actual traffic demand of the audience. So the digital technology team usually has about 4 or 5 major projects going on, and major as in complete rebuilds of services or products. So I've just picked one because I usually joke that I'm either the business guy on the tech side or the tech guy on the business side, but I do really love the technology about it, so I had to have at least one example of one of our infrastructures. So this is the big data infrastructure that we're currently setting up with the help of a Finnish company and our internal team. And it's a typical MVC kind of architecture, heavily focused on running on AWS services. It's a mix of open source and Amazon-specific services. So we have Jenkins and Pentaho, but also we have Elastic MapReduce and Redshift. Now, the thing is that we have a dozen infrastructures like this. This is not a terribly complex one for the kind of stuff that we're running. It hides a lot of very important things to us. For instance, EMR, which here is just a tiny logo. This used to be where you would use Hadoop and create a Hadoop MapReduce cluster, which you would have to buy a service for, install the operating system, put them in racks, install Hadoop on them, create your cluster. That in itself was a project of months. This entire infrastructure the initial version was set up in a few weeks. Getting the MapReduce cluster running is basically going into the Amazon console and clicking on how many nodes you want in there. Okay, I'm simplifying, but not really by that much. It is very, very simple now. Growing this infrastructure as well is much easier than using your own storage devices and so on. This is the current storage ramp-up, which, as you can see, is increasing very, very rapidly. At no given moment in this project did we have to worry about getting more hard drives in or more storage units. We can basically keep increasing the storage volume and keep the data until we run out of budget for the project, but that's the only limitation we have on this. Going back to my map, the main locations we use, like many people in the Middle East, are Virginia and Frankfurt. Virginia because of historic reasons. When we started, Frankfurt didn't exist yet. It's also quite cost effective, but for latency reasons, we're using Frankfurt. We're streaming video. Latency is incredibly important on startup time and video quality. Effectively, of course, this means that right now our digital business is very much services from all over the world coming into this region. This is not the way we would like to see this. We're a Middle Eastern broadcasting company, and we're very much focused on this region. So a good initial first step is looking at the connectivity here. It's actually very, very good. So keeping this traffic in the region, interconnecting between the various ISPs and serving video within the region instead from the outside in. And of course, I was very happy with the announcement earlier because really I think what this should look like in the future is not the rest of the world delivering services to the Middle East. I would really want to see this region deliver services to the entire global audience that is out there for this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. All right. So you got a chance to see how AWS is being used in architecture. And by the time we do this summit next year, I'm going to have lots of you guys telling this story. Because I want to share something as they get these back up. I had my first public sector summit when I started our business 6 years ago. And when I started that business and we said we're going to have our first summit, believe it or not, I only had 50 people there. And we already have over 1,400 here. But at that first summit, I didn't have a lot of customers or partners that could actually tell their story. But fast forward this year, I had over 10,000 attending the Public Sector Summit in Washington, D.C., and I had so many stories that I spent almost a full day with my marketing team going through to select the best stories that we could have on stage. I was humbled. I couldn't believe it. So I tell you that because by the time we have this conference again next year, this summit, we're going to have so many amazing stories, we're not going to be able to choose who gets to tell theirs. But the good news is you get to do them in the breakout sessions as well. But it's important because it also shows the evolution of a region as you go through the transformation. So, what does it take to get on the path of transformation? Well, you need these building blocks that we talked about. And it's really important for any workload that you're building that you do understand how to build with security and privacy in mind. And by the way, there is no architecture that is secure unless you understand all the principles. And AWS works with you very closely to make sure that you do have a secure architecture. And we do that through our security blog posts. We have a security design center. We have tons of new services. And we have our partners actually rolling out new services. And that's important because of the experience from the partners. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. And then compliance is important because you have to understand what are the controls that are necessary for the kind of workload you're running. If you're running a government workload, usually there's different data classifications that you need to meet. In the US, we had something called FedRAMP, which was a very early security and compliance regime for cloud computing. And now that regime is actually being used around the world. And then, of course, cloud policy and procurement. These are all recipes for success because if you don't have the right policies in place, then both the agencies themselves or ministers and the actual companies working don't know how to plug into it and make it right. So they need some type of prescriptive model. And when we talk about security in the cloud, so we make sure that you have security in the cloud. And then you get to define your controls that you use for the type of workload. And in fact, I will share with you, we run every kind of workload in the world, everything from very open websites that you want everybody to access to the most classified and secure types of applications that you can imagine. And it really is the fact that you get to define, again, your controls in the cloud, and AWS takes care of the security of the cloud. And we do that through tools like that we have identity and access management, and then we have detective controls, infrastructure security, data protection, and then incident response. And this just gives you an example of all the services that we offer. And in fact, many of these services we give to you for free. So you can utilize these services at a free tier and try it. But we want to make sure, as an example, if you're having DDoS attacks, we now have a service that tells you what's going on. And then if you have a massive attack and you have a spike in our infrastructure, we work with you to make sure that you're not paying for that during a DDoS attack. We also have a model where we go in and look at your architecture and we tell you, is your architecture secure? We make recommendations to you on that architecture. So this is our AWS Security Solutions. And this last year, we had more customers requesting that we provide the services to you that we actually use. So we just launched a new service called Macy just recently. And so you all, if you get a chance, please, I encourage you to go to our security solutions and take a look just so you really understand the types of services that you can take advantage of. And then a really important ingredient to this success is partners. And we have consulting partners and we have technology partners. And without these partners, you need integrators to integrate what you're doing. You need new ISVs and SaaS providers that are creating new services that help you build on what you actually need. And that's really our goal, to help create this amazing community of partners that can grow and scale. And now we have thousands and thousands of partners around the world. And I hope to see more of these actually grow in the Middle East. Now, I talked about compliance a while ago. And FedRAMP is up there in the right corner. And that was really one of the very first ones that we achieved because it was challenging. But the U.S., they were sort of leading. But now we have other countries like the UK is really leading, Australia. Bahrain is leading now in what you are doing, and you're going to hear a little bit about that in a minute. But we literally have auditors in our data centers all the time auditing what we're doing and making sure. And a lot of these controls, it's really about the controls that you need to utilize in the workload that you actually have. And then global policy and procurement examples. And you see we write it here, IGA, Cloud First Policy. It's very important that you make a statement as a leadership and say, we are going to go cloud. And in fact, the UK government has something now called a cloud native policy, where they're just saying, we're going to put everything in the cloud. The US government is working on a new model right now. They just passed a modernization bill around IT where they're pushing really hard to move as much as they can into the cloud. So you're seeing governments really take a leading role and effort now to not just move corporations, but they themselves. And I tell governments, you can't just talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. And you have to show that you're doing digital transformation as well as asking your entire government to modernize. You have to show them that you're modernizing. But these are some great examples. And also just cloud procurements. In the early days, no one knew how to write a cloud procurement. So they would write a very traditional old school model for cloud. But we've even seen that change. So you're really seeing an evolution and a revolution of changes come about with both security, compliance, policy, and procurement. Now, someone, and you better get these slides up right, because I'm coming over there if you're not. Now, I want to introduce you to an amazing man, Mohammed Al-Qaed, who is the chief executive for the eGovernment Authority here in Bahrain, who's been both an amazing partner, but is driving. He is not just talking the talk, he is walking the walk. So please help me put your hands together and welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks to Amazon and Teresa for giving me this opportunity to talk, give the government keynote speech. As we heard earlier about the digital disruptions happening everywhere in multiple industries, what Uber is doing, what B&B is doing, and what Tesla is doing to the different industries. Similar thing expected or happening, whether we believe it or not, in the government sector. And we have to be prepared for that. Before getting into the disruptions going on, our e-government strategy is well aligned with the government program announced by His Royal Highness Prime Minister and handed to the Parliament, with the National Development Strategy announced by His Royal Highness Crown Prince, First Deputy Prime Minister, Chairman of EDB, and the National Telecom. So we are committed to achieve next generation government excellence. The ICT leadership model that we have through Supreme Committee for ICT, led by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Mubarak Al Khalifa, and the commitment and the focus, the vision to streamline our operations and bring all the government under one direction, helped us to implement the e-government strategy, and with the IT governance model, all the procurements and all the recruitments happening in the ICT sector goes through the National Committee, which approves all of those procurements. Through that model, we managed to deliver more than 300 fully integrated e-services across 5 channels, more than 90% the usage of our services, more than $500 million of online payments, lots of international and regional recognitions, more than 15 international awards, UN 9, and 22 regional awards. Well recognized by the world. I didn't talk about this, sorry. Before the recognitions, of course, through the clear vision and dedication, Bahrain were the first country to have a unified data network, first to have a centralized data center, mid-90s and 80s, first fully integrated portal, multiple national systems. We don't allow any ministry to invest in any system or solution if more than one organization needs that system. So those are just examples: national authentication system, payment system, contact center, notification, complaint system. So multiple national systems that stops the duplication of the waste of resources and money and time. So this is where we get the international recognitions. Regionally, we're first in the e-government readiness by the UN report, first in infrastructure. That's been there for the past 6-7 years. First in infrastructure development, globally 11th in infrastructure development, 24th in the government readiness by the UN and ITU. Doing all the centralized systems and national systems, it makes Bahrain more efficient. It reduces the cost, properly utilizes the resources that we have. We get an order last year by His Royal Highness Crown Prince to cut the operations cost for IT for around 30%. We managed to do that through a lot of restructure, negotiations with our partners. We managed to cut the cost of OPEX. But still, there are lots of challenges that the governments face in the ICT. The demand that we are facing from our customers, expectations, people are more aware of the technologies, and they expect the government to be more responsive, to be faster in deployment. The national transformations going in the government that push all the government sector and different areas and sectors to do things in a better way. We heard earlier about the role of the government being enablers, setting the policies, and we can't do that as a government without the technology. We can't change the way or delivery of the service being more efficient or faster to market without the technology. As a pioneer, as a leader, we have to adapt to the change, and we have to always rethink about the way that we deliver our services and the way that we manage our IT infrastructure. That was one of the reasons that let Bahrain consider the cloud or think about the cloud. Always when we try a new direction, properly analyze it, research it, look into the best practice everywhere. And we came up with a conclusion or a direction for the government. We are proud to be the first country in the Middle East having a cloud-first policy that which gives the priority to any investments in IT to go to the cloud before considering any other options. And they have to prove that it's more costly or unsecure if they went to cloud to be able to run it in other ways. Of course, you know, the impacts and benefits, Teresa talked about it, the agility, fueling innovation in the public sector, time to market. From my experience, all the national projects that we went through, even sometimes a single website requires months. The national projects requires at least 16 to 24 months of procurement and configuration in a very complex environment, a lot of CapEx spent, And after 18 months, sometimes you forget why you are going that direction, or maybe the infrastructure is not the right one, or when you fail, it's very costly to the government to fail. So the fail fast concept, I think, is very important for the government to consider by going to cloud. Efficiencies, better use of resources, doing more with less. You don't need a capex. You can save your money, have any kind of infrastructure ready for you in a week or two without paying anything. And then if you need it, you can pay after testing it. Improving the performance and skills, and low to zero capex, as I mentioned, and on-demand elasticity. For example, I remember one of the services that is always a nightmare when it's required by the customers is the exam results for students. We have more than 1.5 million hits in 36 hours, and then nothing during the year. So a lot of work, not to build. Bahrain, of course, we don't have that kind of luxury to build the resources for only one day, but we do a lot of workarounds and bringing down some services to give the resources to the system. Now, with cloud, we don't have to invest, or we don't have to bother of preparations of 4 weeks for that only one day hit. Our direction, of course, is issuing the cloud first policy, which was approved by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Mubarak Al Khalifa. It was forwarded to all the ministries, and we arranged lots of workshops to tell them and run them through the policy. Cloud architecture, we don't take off-the-shelf service. We worked closely with Amazon to architect the cloud to the government needs, making sure it's secured, the encryption, how it works, the monitoring, the space that the government accessing. Each ministry, they have the flexibility of procurement. So the whole infrastructure is worked out and working. AWS framework agreement, the procurement process to be very fast. Consider the cloud in a different way. As Teresa mentioned, it's not a normal procurement that you have to tender and then know beforehand how much you are going to pay. It's a utility. If you need it, you will pay. So we had to sit with Ministry of Finance, change the ways, the rules, the policies of the government, tender board. So a lot to be done with the procurement process, and of course the skill set, training, and capacity building. Many workshops, certifications, working with Tamkeen, certifying Amazon courses, institutions, closely with the University of Bahrain to have curriculum ready for the students who are going to be graduated, to be ready for the market, for the change of the market that's happening in the cloud. It's not a theoretical thing. I'm going to give you some real examples. Walk the walk. eGovernment, Information eGovernment Authority managed to migrate in the past couple of months more than 100 virtual servers, and in no time, with all the training required, we are committed to migrate the entire hosting platform, more than 650 virtual servers to the cloud by end of the year, with a saving of 54%. I would like here to thank Sheikh Salman bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, Director of Operations in IGA, and his team, Mohammed Al-Yasi, Hisham Al-Hashmi, Dr. Khalid from security, Ahmed Bulfat, Mubarak Al-Haddi. Thank you very much for your dedication. We have a wonderful team here. Two months or 3 months back, I was talking to Teresa that we need an architect, we need help from Amazon to help us through the migration process. Now, I have a confidence of my team that they can do migration for us and the ministries without anybody's help, because they obtain the knowledge. We are working the next level of optimizations and doing better performance and proper optimization of the environment. Some other real examples, the first movers, Ministry of Education, learning management system that serves 149,000 users, being students, parents, teachers, all the education community. The project put on hold due to lack of budget. They require 230,000 dinars, about $600,000. Unavailable budget, they couldn't migrate. Thanks to the technical team at Ministry of Education, we managed to migrate all their services to the cloud in less than a month with zero capex, with 90% savings. Thank you very much, education team. Second example, BIPA, Dr. Raed and his team, LMS serving local and regional government. They had lots of requests from other regional governments to use their excellent system, learning management system. They needed to invest into the system to expand, but of course, it's very difficult for a government to provide infrastructure for other governments, and that might be used or not. Now they have the elasticity, and they can scale up without any capex. Millions of legal cases and documents, Ministry of Justice, they migrated to the cloud. Originally, they had archives of only 2 weeks, and they couldn't keep more than that due to the massive storage required. They migrated to the cloud again in a few weeks, and currently they have resources or availability of 5 years of archiving storage. All of these examples happened in a few weeks. Those are the first movers. They had the courage to do it. Dr. Raed get his Visa card, and he said, register me, because he didn't want to waste time. So, this kind of government models, I think, will drive and make Bahrain lead the way into the cloud, helping different sectors to adapt to the needs and the pressure coming from the public and from the leadership. By that, I will conclude my remarks. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. Mohammed, that's amazing. Let me tell you, I mean, this is true government transformation. You should be so proud of what the government of Bahrain is doing. And I will tell you, they're like no excuses either. They're like, and when Mohammed said their team now is ready to go, they are moving, and they are moving fast. And it just, I think, goes to show the technical talent that you have locally in the region to be able to really absorb and take on cloud computing. All right, so let's transform together. How do we do this? Well, we're here to help you, and you're going to hear a lot more about this in the breakout sessions. But everything, we have something called AWS Answers. So when you have questions, you can email us at AWS Answers. We have Enterprise Accelerator tools. We have Trusted Advisor that supports all your needs in terms of when you're building up a design and architecture. You can look and assess, is this the right architecture? Could I do it with different types of compute? Am I using the right tools I need? Because believe it or not, we want to save you money. We want to make sure that you're not overpaying for what you need to be doing in IT. We have support. We have training and certification. We have some partners actually here today doing training and certification. You just handed me one, so I actually have a card that has local training here in Bahrain. We have solution architects, and we have professional services. So we're really here to meet your needs end to end, and you're going to be learning a lot more about these services here in the region as you grow what you're doing on the AWS cloud. And I welcome you to take full advantage of these. Now, we're going to go into quickly the next generation workforce. And this is what's really important. You heard Mohammed talking about the skills development. And we need to make sure that you actually have the skills that you need to work in a modern age of IT, in a DevOps world. And we created about a year and a half ago, I guess now, a program called AWS Educate. And we're in now more than 1,000 educational institutions around the world. We are in all the top computer science programs in the world. And what this is, it's a program where we work with computer science professors and students. We provide them online training, curriculum that the professors can crowdsource around. We give them free credits and many times grants if they have a program that they really want to drive. And you can badge along the way as you go through and you get more and more AWS experience. You create a cloud career pathway online and you get badges. And then when you're badged and certified, we'll even put you on our AWS jobs board and help try to match you to the right kind of job. And we want to be able to do that here in the region more and more, because I hear when I travel, people say, I need those job skills. And I really encourage you. And in fact, many of the universities here are participating in the Middle East. And right here's a list of all of them. And if we're missing one, if you're here in the audience and we're missing one of the programs, if you'll please let myself or my team know. We'd love to enroll you in the AWS Educate program. But really, it's about getting that 21st century job skills for digital and tech that's really required, and also upping the ability for pay. It's really about creating economic development and more jobs, and we want to be able to do that here in the Middle East. So someone, again, that I just really near and dear to my heart, Bahrain Polytechnic, as I shared with you earlier, has the most students enrolled in any program we have in the world, with over 1,600 students. And I had the opportunity to meet Samir not too long ago. She and I did some press together. So please put your hands together and welcome her to the stage. And she's going to talk to you. Thank you. It's so lovely to see you.
Oh, I'm so excited to
we'll get your slides up here for you.
Feeling like home already. So, Your Excellence and respected colleagues and respected audience, I'm so proud to be around here to tell the story of Bahrain Polytechnic. Moving to the cloud, and more specifically to the Amazon AWS cloud. But before that, let me talk about the motive that made us took the decision to move to the cloud in general. And that is to be compliant to the business requirement. As an IT, we're working in higher educational institute, and we are mainly focused on operational aspect of the business. We know that there are lots of heroes, they are taking care of the academic parts. But we believe in Bahrain Polytechnic that our mission is so challenging that we are all to produce ready-to-work graduate. This means, really, that our students are expected to perform at their first day of employment, if not with the minimum amount of a training. And also, they have to be equipped with the 21st century skills. Now, to do so, we had an idea in ICT team. And I'm so honored also if I had the opportunity to ask them to stand and to make themselves recognized, to share with me this precious moment, I believe. So please, whomever available from Bahrain Polytechnic ICT team. So I think they are the real heroes. I'm talking on their behalf only. So in order to do this, we took a decision in ICT services that we need to change the way we think. We need to change the way we do things. Instead of supporting system and being so occupied of resolving tickets and incidents, into supporting the actual business. And to be able, again, to do so, we had to meet so many stakeholders to try to find out and to try to understand what are their limitations, what are their issues, and what really stops them from supporting the decision to move to the cloud. And one of the stakeholders that we met was IGA, as well as our internal stakeholder. From IGA, we took the general guideline over the governance, data governance and security, and from our stakeholders, we thought about the added value. So it is really important not just to migrate to the cloud, but to really think what is the added value we are going to give for our business. And our stakeholders, they came up with the idea of focusing on the learning management system, which is Mahara Moodle. It's an open source platform, allows the students to share their projects, to share their assignments together. They can chat with each other. And it is almost like 400 GB, and it's almost expected to grow 700 GB as the semester goes by. This is one system. The other system is really the e-portfolio system. And what is the e-portfolio system? It's Mahara. It's a system that allows, again, our students to share their projects with the future and a prospect hirer. And let's say now Bahrain Polytechnic, as I said, is unique in one aspect, that our team, the ICT team, did the entire work. With a little bit support of the online material, the vast amount of online material in Udemy and Linux Academy, as well the amazing material provided by the Amazon Quick Labs. And the most distinguished thing about Bahrain Polytechnic, that as you have seen, that women are almost presenting like 50% of our team. So this is something that's so precious and dear to my heart. Women in IT. And let's talk about the aspects, and for those who may share comments and discussion with us after the summit, please find the time to visit us in the Bahrain Polytechnic stand and booth. You will find the amazing team to explain for you how we did it and what did we do and what we did not do. I think those who are sharing with us the connectivity to GDN through VPN, so we don't have a direct access to the government network, but we've done it differently with the support of IG, of course. And thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So give her a big round. Isn't that awesome? Thank you, Samir. All right. That comes to the end of my part. And I just have one more thing to say, which is thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you so much for participating in our launch. Thank you to EDB for your amazing partnership, the Crown Prince, the King, everything that you guys have done really just to make this event possible. And you guys probably saw all the flags flying around the city. I said, I've got to take one of those home. I don't know if, I hope I can like sort of grab one of those before I leave. But I really encourage you to take advantage of the breakout sessions. And also, next up, I'd like to have Max Peterson come to the stage. We are going to have an amazing panel for you. So please be still, because you're going to hear about how different groups are really taking advantage of driving the cloud. So thank you guys again, and thank you for coming. Max?